castles on our backs. We're out here fighting, they're keeping track. Paper lies and gilded halls, empty hands,
but the hammer falls.
It's a house of cards and it won't stand, built on promises and sleight of hand. They play by rules they make and bend, while we're left broken, trying to mend.
She signed her name with shaking pen,
Dreamed a shelter for her kin, but the ink was stained with greedy plans. Their smiling masks, their dirty hands. Oh, they preach of faith, of right and just, but their gold is made of rust. It's a house of cards and it won't stand, built on promises and sleight of hand. They play by rules they make and bend, while we're left broken, trying to mend. They'll toast their wine, they'll shake their fists, claim they're saints, but we know this. A wolf in wool, a serpent's grin. The game is rigged and we won't win. Stupid people should wear signs, neon bright, so we can find a way to dodge their tangled mess, avoid their chaos more, say less. Wear a sign, wear a sign, save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, nada, nada, don't waste your time. Politicians dance and spin, blatant lies with a practiced grin. Blame the moon, blame the stars, blame the traffic or faulty cars. You think they're 6, not 35, playing games to stay alive. Wear a sign, save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, nada, nada, don't waste your time. Celebrities with tails so tall, lost my yacht, it's so small. It's hard being rich, don't you see? You're living in your fantasy.
Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Welcome back, folks. It's the Sunday edition of Chris Wyatt Reports here on the Africa channel. Of Chris Wyatt, just checking the sound. That's good. Lots of things happening with my computer. I went back and reset the TPM settings, and hopefully that fixes the problem I've had the past couple of days because it's getting very annoying. Welcome back to the program. Explosive news from City Press. Erica Gibson making a bold claim that South Africa has been supplying military aircraft to a sanctioned warlord. Now, to correct the record here, someone's already mistakenly said that these are U.S. sanctions. First off, correct the record. There are no U.S. sanctions against South Africa. Anybody misunderstood that. Second, there is not a sanction that we're talking about that's related to South Africa. We're talking about a sanction that is imposed by the United Nations Security Council on supplying weapons to Libyan warlords. Now, I'm not claiming that the South African government is behind it. I'm also not claiming they're not behind it. What I'm stating is that these are explosive allegations and a story with physical evidence backed by City Press. Yes, City Press is part of News 24 and Cot 24's larger family of propagandists. However, they do some news reporting that is accurate. This is explosive, and it also goes a long way in explaining these unexplained Illusion 76 flights landing at Uppington, Lanseria, Waterkloof over the past few years. Shocking, to say the least, except it's not shocking, folks. It's not even remotely shocking that someone in South Africa would be involved in selling these. Number one, people want to make money. These things are ready on hand. The question is, are they surplus gazelles? Are they from South African National Defense Forces military stocks? Were they civilianized ones? I doubt they were civilianized because in order to be turned into civilian use, you must have the permission of the French and British government. I'm not aware, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I'm not aware of any authorization by the French and British governments to take these and sell them to the public. I had a similar situation as a security cooperation officer in Botswana. Upon my arrival, the Botswana Defense Force had just auctioned off 100 Humvees to the public. Now, they own them, but they don't have the right to dispose of them in that fashion under the agreement of purchasing. The same thing with the gazelles. The South African government doesn't have the right, even though it was an apartheid government that sold them those gazelles. It really doesn't matter. Or they were sold to an apartheid government. It doesn't matter. You simply cannot dispose of military equipment, sell it to anybody you want, or destroy it without the authority of the people who sold you the stuff so they can ensure that the things are disposed of in a non-militarized fashion or destroyed completely rather than someone just claiming they destroyed them. So this is an explosive story that will get legs. It's going to get legs. This story will definitely get legs. Now, I've already said, I did a video on this story the other day, Uppington and Lanseria, and I said, all this stuff about nuclear waste from Iran and, and pallet loads of cash from Iran for the ANC that's bankrupt and military hardware potentially for Al-Hatla, those are all possibilities. But the real issue with the Uppington flight was the optics. I think there's a gentleman's on here, or a lady, or, I don't know, Pat is an androgynous name. I don't know if you're a man or a lady, Pat. My apologies. But Pat said a little while ago that there weren't sanctions on this deal. Well, there are. We got two things. We've got blacklisted Russian arms company that the United States takes offense to South Africa doing business with. South Africa is a sovereign state. They can do business with what they want. But if you think that you're going to come in with a position that we are a democratic, legitimate government and we're working to improve the life of South Africans by allowing sanctioned companies that are part of a conflict, an unjust conflict in Ukraine, to land here, you think that's going to curry favor with the American trade officials? Not going to happen. Not a wise move. And that was the point of my video. It's a bad optic. If you want to lower tariffs, the last thing you want to do is upset the people who have tariffs on you needlessly. And this is an own goal. That was my video the other day. And that's the point I have in the story. All the other stuff is all speculation. We have no idea. This story, however, is an example of a Russian company blacklisted by the United States and Western Europe and other real countries for its conduct, carrying South African military hardware on aircraft that repeatedly turn their transponders on and off to mislead those who track flights around the world, landing or supposedly destined for Jordan, but winding up in Benghazi with South African military helicopters. That is a UN sanctions violation. Whether the South African government was complicit, allowed it to happen, looked the other way, or simply negligent in doing its basic job of checking these things, they're guilty of violating UN sanctions. They're guilty of violating UN sanctions. You think the news article was planted. Planted by whom, for what means? Now, as I said, this is alleged by City Press. I haven't been to Benghazi. I haven't seen the photographs on Arabic websites. Alan says South Africa sold ZT-3 missiles to Algeria, but Algeria is not sanctioned. But your point is valid, but that's not a sanction. What you say is true, but it's not a sanction. Definitely something going on here. The scores of own goals are about 550. The U.S. needs to take action. Yeah, well, they're not laughing U.S. law. There's no law that applies to South Africa. We have no law that applies to South Africa. We can take diplomatic actions against them. Maybe that's what laughing at, or diplomacy. Yep. Ciro and his 40 thieves working with terrorists. They need to earn income. Yep. So the planes were potentially dropped off cash in exchange for helicopters. Trust the ANC to make matters to the U.S. and other countries worse. Daniel, without me having said it, you've just kind of synopsized what may have happened. Yeah, well, listen, folks. Remember, excuse me. Remember what happened here. Years ago, when I was stationed in Africa, the ANC, the South African government, and other African governments screamed, "Oh, do something! Muammar Gaddafi is killing the Libyans." Remember that? Muammar Gaddafi sent his troops into Benghazi. He was murdering civilians. Remember that? When he had an uprising? You got to do something. You got to do something. Why is the West doing something? Why is it NATO doing something? And then NATO engaged. You see, what the African leaders wanted was the threat of violence. They wanted UN Security Council resolutions. They wanted the US and Europe, Brits in particular, to threaten Gaddafi to stop killing people. They didn't actually want them to do it, because when they actually did it, then they cried, "Oh, look at the evil white people sticking their nose in Africa." Remember that? Their collective amnesia about how they led the charge. South African diplomats led the charge in getting the West to be involved in Libya. And then they're just like, "Oh, that wasn't us. We didn't do that." Problem was, I was there. You can rewrite history all you want. I was there. I was on the ground. I know what happened. You people led the charge, demanded action. You were angry there was no action being taken because he was slaughtering civilians, which he was. And then NATO led an air campaign. Oh, that evil NATO. Who are they to invade Africa? You asked us to do it repeatedly. You called us names because we wouldn't do it. Then we did it. And now we're evil? Yeah, well, there you go, folks. And so these are the same people who cried about NATO intervention in Libya, and now they're supplying the warlords. They're supplying the warlords over the recognized, internationally sanctioned and approved Libyan government. Now, I don't really care for this government, nor do I care for Haftar, but isn't it ironic how whenever the situation suits the ANC's needs and African needs, well, it's this way. But the same situation, it can be this way. Hypocrites, thy name is Africa. Wow. Wow. This is a big story, folks. We have the refugee broadcast coming up after this later today. If you want to tune in for that, you're welcome to join us. So we'll have our weekly Cafe Clutch to discuss what's going on. I haven't, unless there's been more emails come last day or so, I haven't heard from more refugees coming over because they're not coming over now. But those who are here, I haven't heard from more of them offering interviews. One had offered an interview, but I haven't heard from that person. Folks, you have to understand, when you send me a message and all I have is a phone number and I can't search for it, or you send me a pseudonym for an email and you tell me you wrote to me and you don't tell me your name, it's hard for me to find out. So I get hundreds of these requests every day. I know of at least one lady who promised to do an interview with me who's in the States, and I can't find that message now. So if you're out there, ma'am, please send me another message and put it. When you send me a message, you can put it in all caps. Just don't do it in the chat. You can send me in all caps a message and say, "Hey, Chris, I'm the person that offered to come on because I'd like to do another interview." All right. That's why they were shipped to Algeria, and we know how corrupt that country is. I'm not aware that Algeria has a great relationship with Libya, but I do know that Algeria does support the Zawahiri. That's true. Who is Paul O'Sullivan and who is John Erasmus? Christian Morning News. Who are those people? Sorry, I don't know who they are. Folks, lots of news to talk about. The peace settlement, or the ceasefire in Gaza, appears to be holding at this hour, despite many people concerned. Ronell Lowe, welcome to you. J9, Chris Ehlers, Peter Talliard, welcome to you. Garrett, Erica, Alan, Mays, Francis Ruiz, Shannon, Ian Moon, Alan Ballady, Petrus Neyman, Sari Skuman, Malcolm Koloti, Hopefully the water isn't poo water this morning there in the harbor of Durban. Helen of Troy's back. Ingrid's Inspirations. Elmarie Mayer. Anton Mulder. Gary. Jerry. Hendo. Chris Stunda. And there's a super chat. ANC cannot tell the truth. It burns like holy water. Mr. Kerr, you are correct. Clouds are gathering. Clouds are gathering. 35 Rand super chat. Thank you for that. At the rate the money hasn't been coming into this channel, not that that was ever the purpose of it, I may have to pay YouTube to use the platform. YouTube's going to be angry. Hey, you used to make us a lot of ad revenue. You're not making any now. We're going to shut you down. Wait for it. Lawrence Duplessis, welcome to you. Estelle Edwards, Allison Johnson, Pastor Don, AJ Quinn, Vanna van der Merwe, Madeline Marissa Besselar, Lynn G. Harris, Roy McRae, Storm ZA, Rex Zuman Sumari, Paul de Klerk. You're very welcome for the rugby broadcast. That was difficult. I was knackered yesterday. I mean, those games were so lame and so boring and so disappointing. Plus, I had to go in and check on the Veterans Organization. I came back, and I had taken a stance a few weeks back that I would not do the night owls on Saturdays just to take a break because I do it 7 days a week, and it's exhausting every 12 hours doing a broadcast. It really wears on you. So last night, I decided to go ahead and take it, and I just fell asleep at couldn't have been 10 o'clock, and woke up at 6 o'clock, almost like 8 hours straight through. I was truly knackered. And then just was tired and said, I'm not getting up. And I got up a little bit later, and the whole world is on fire when I wake up. Peanut in a Packet, welcome to you. Gordon van Rensburg, the aforementioned Andrew Kerr, and Dylan Combrick, one of the OGs. There's Pat Mdoda. My apologies, Pat, if I get your name wrong. Mdoda, saying it's U.S. sanctions, not UN sanctions. No, I'm sorry, you're mistaken, my friend. It's United Nations sanctions against delivering arms to a Libyan warlord. That's the violation, not the Abacom Airways. Yep. So you're making an assumption that was incorrect. Hope you're still here, Pat. Thanks for joining us. Philip Holtz, Allison Johnson, Gus is back. Taylor Made, Tiger and Sweets, Orangutan Juice. Well, that's an interesting username. Conrad is here. Xavier Grayling is back. Dan Bailey in from Wyoming. The way America used to be. Wyoming. Multipass. Lelo Dallas has joined us. Multipass. Pete Smith. Who else we got there? Aretha Milan. Welcome to you. Siva Osthuizen. Malcolm Clody. I already mentioned. Elsie van Rooyen. Legal Alien as opposed to the illegal ones. Alex 44066 somewhere in Ohio. OH10. H10. Ohio. That's what we used to call it, OH10 back in the day. Yep, great state of Ohio. Werner van der Merwe. Fabian Bridger, welcome to you. Kindness. Expat Family Joubert. And I think I'm almost caught up. And Thea, welcome to you. Crystal Snayman. David Muller. Yeah, Phoenix. Sure, I missed a person or two. Apologies for that. Right. Well, a lot of chat coming here. You guys are chatting away. Feel free to do that. Brand new AK-47 found around South Africa. I don't know. How did Russia get South African laser rangefinders to fit their drones? Well, they were shipped on the Lady R. How else, Richard? How else did they get there? 50 tanks disappeared. I don't know about that. What tanks? Okay. This is what happens when there's a bunch of Doomkopf in charge. Yeah, that's true. Oh, they have ties, but I still don't know who they are. That tells me what you say they're involved in, Christian, but it doesn't tell me who they are. I don't know who the other people are. Sorry. Well, I know who Ramaphosa is. Yep. All right. And so I missed one person I think came up there. Odin's Vikings. That's who I missed. James Duvall. Martin van der Merwe. Okay, well, I can't get everybody. Sur Ronster, welcome to you. Knight Phoenix. Steve Marquia, what's new with the government shutdown? Nothing's new. The Democrats continue to harm Americans. Donald Trump has found a way to pay military salaries. I hope that includes retirees. I'm not making any money on YouTube. And my consulting gig might be kiboshed. I just paid another ton of money to the tax man, to the Pennsylvania tax man, to the federal tax man. Just cleaned out my business account again to pay taxes. I mean, basically that business account is for a little bit of travel expenses and to pay taxes. I don't really... Every time I turn around, the balance is not zero, but it's not good because I keep paying taxes and I keep... Actually, Chief Wolf, South Africa had a few hundred Centurion tanks reclassified and redesigned as Olifants. They've never gone away. Only a couple were destroyed or in Angola. The rest were immobilized and then withdrawn. So, yeah, South Africa does have tanks. They're called Olifants. They do have tanks. Whether they're operational is a different story. but they do have tanks. Yep, Crypto Noob is here. And Shellyan Kotza, welcome to you. Nick Rose. Hey, Nick, how's it going? There's an OG. 27 code US after YouTube, federal income, and local taxes. Oh, 27 cents. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, no. My business account is not just YouTube income, which isn't much. It's also my consulting income that goes in there. and my consulting gig is on the fence right now because of the shutdown. I might not be doing it. So anyway, Fabian sent me a super chat. Didn't I mention it, Fabian? Oh, no, I missed it. Sorry. I watched a 1957 South African comedy movie called Dis Lekker te Leven. It's Nice to Live. It was done in collaboration with the Army, and that's where more active planes and tanks in the movie than what we have now. Oh, gotcha, Fabian. Thank you for the 200 Rand. I didn't see that come up. Thank you for reminding me. Sorry about I missed that. 502 people currently here, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, explosive story breaking out of South Africa, reported by Erica Gibson in City Press, a sister publication of Cockprat 24 under the News 24 Empire, who proudly boast how successful they were today. All right, so let's get to it. All right. Well, I don't know what's going on with Storm ZA, what that's supposed to mean. Ho, ho, ho. What, that is not the right window. Keep getting the wrong window here. There we go. Now we've got it. Ladies and gentlemen, this story from City Press, South African helicopters smuggled to Libya warlord via Russian flights. We've been wondering what's going on with the IL-76 Solutions landing in Uppington and Lanseria and Waterkloof. Well, this story purports to say what's going on. Who is Johan Erasmus? You keep telling me, I need more information there, Christian Morning News. Okay, so you want me to investigate Paul O'Sullivan. Hang on a second. All my files I'm working on aren't coming up. There we go. Paul O'Sullivan. Okay, all right. At least 4 Gazelle helicopters are flown from Lanseria aboard an IL-76 over the past 2 months. Flight plans falsely listing Jordan as destination when they actually wound up in the hands of General Khalifa Haftar's rebel territory in Benghazi. These aircraft were transported by Abakan Air, a blacklisted U.S. company. And Pat, that is who's blacklisted, but the fact that they were transported by Abakan is a problem for the U.S. and Western Europe, not for South Africa necessarily, other than it's a dumb look. But transporting those things to a UN-sanctioned entity, a Libyan warlord, are not allowed. And therein we have a violation. The exports violate UN sanctions against delivering military equipment to Haftar, with no evidence that government officials bothered to inspect the cargo or prevented the transfers. So they're complicit in one way or another. Several Gazelle helicopters have been quietly exported from South Africa to a controversial Libyan warlord over the past few months. Russian charter flights were used to transport the helicopters from South Africa to the Libyan rebel area of Benghazi, controlled by General Khalifa Haftar, former ally of Muammar Gaddafi. Haftar made headlines last year as he sent his troops to a training camp at Vit Revere in Mpumalanga for training as security guards. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 2 strikes. 2 strikes violating United Nations sanctions. Remember that story last year? Remember that? We covered that story. People said Libyan terrorists were being trained. Well, I couldn't find evidence of Libyan terrorists, but we certainly found evidence of Libyan rebels falsely being trained as security guards, learning paramilitary and military tactics and techniques in Mpumalanga. South Africa's government is either negligent or complicit in the arming of a rebel force sanctioned by the United Nations. Remember that gray listing by the Financial Action Task Force? Do you think South Africa, in the midst of Mkhitaryan mess, in the midst of the Madlanga Commission, in the midst of this, is going to find itself removed from the gray list? You better look again. You better look again, folks. This is not a good look. How stupid are these people? Stupid people should wear signs, folks. They really should. They really should. Stupid people should wear signs. Honestly. I mean, really. Because, my goodness. It's just unbelievable. 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 I mean, honestly, guys, stupid people. This is just dumb. These are own goals. These are unnecessary things. How much money is accruing? It's not exactly a fortune. It's not exactly a fortune that's accruing to people. So why are they doing such stupid things? Honestly. I mean, you got to wonder. There are really some stupid people involved here. honestly.
Stupid people should wear signs.
They really should.
Neon bright so we can find
That way we won't misidentify them.
a way to dodge their tangled mess.
It is a mess.
Avoid their chaos more.
Say less. Wear a sign, wear a sign.
Save me from your twisted line.
Wear a sign, wear a sign.
Nada, nada, don't waste your time.
Why are we wasting our time on these clowns? Because they run the country.
Politicians dance and spin. Blatant lies with a practiced grin. Blame the moon,
Blame the stars.
Blame the traffic or faulty cars.
Faulty car.
You think they're 6, not 35. Playing games to stay alive.
Oh, wear a sign, wear a sign.
Save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Nada, nada, don't waste your time. Celebrities with tails so tall. Lost my yacht, it's so small.
Lost my yacht, it's so small.
It's hard being rich, don't you?
It's tough being rich.
see?
Ah.
You're living in your fantasy.
Wear a sign. This song is not on DJ Silver Eagle. It will go up soon. I've been very busy, folks, working endless hours, and I'm way behind on a number of things for my personal edification, including my health. So it'll come. Back to the story at hand. South Africa is in violation of United Nations sanctions against arming a Libyan warlord. According to a report in City Press, it's a bold claim, and they appear to have evidence. The Gazelle helicopters were all once used by British and French air forces. After they were demilitarized, many were brought to South Africa and registered here. Some of the helicopters changed hands several times before a private company allegedly began buying them recently and sold them to Haftar. But that private company can't sell them to Haftar because it's illegal. And even so, they can't dispose of them without the French and British authority approval. Last week, City Press sister publication Rapport revealed that a Russian IL-76 from Abakan recently landed quietly at Uppington, unloaded unknown cargo. The aircraft then landed at Lanseria, where it refueled before allegedly flying to Somalia. But it went to Benghazi. Abakan and its specific aircraft are blacklisted by the U.S. because they're involved in supplying Russian armaments to private military groups such as Wagner and the Africa Corps, which operate in Mali and Central African Republic, among other places. After the report, the Transport Department said last week that the IL-76 cargo plane unloaded general cargo, helicopters, and acrobatic equipment, and that Abakan Air had previously obtained a legitimate foreign operator permit in South Africa. Folks, it doesn't matter whether Abakan has a legitimate permit to operate in South Africa. That's not the point. That isn't germane. It's stupid, but it isn't the point. Which of the ANC oligarchs will this company be tied to? Which portfolio does it belong to? Without throwing any names out there, I don't want to be accused till we hear something from the news. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. After the report, the Transport Department said they had the permit. Well, that doesn't matter. One of the reasons the U.S. government has sanctions against Abakan is that its aircraft switch off their transponders and deviate from flight routes so they can unload dubious cargo at equally dubious destinations. These sanctions do not apply locally due to South Africa BRICS membership and its close ties with Russia. However, UN sanctions apply against the delivery of any military-related equipment to Haftar. But that's also factually incorrect. The sanctions aren't applicable not because South Africa is a member of BRICS. That has nothing to do with it. What does BRICS have to do with anything? BRICS has nothing to do with it. BRICS has no authority. It has no sovereignty over any country, including South Africa. This is stupid. Who said this? It doesn't say who said that. They just quote this. Are they quoting their own story? They don't quote any official claiming it's BRICS. These sanctions do not apply locally due to South Africa's BRICS membership. No, it has nothing to do with that. Those sanctions on the blacklisted company have nothing to do with South Africa because South Africa didn't apply them. That's why. Not because they're a member of BRICS. Wow. Revelation of the mysterious flight of Uppington caused a stir in local intelligence circles. Well, also in the media. Also in the media, folks. Repeated inquiries to the Border Management Agency about the matter were not answered. The publication that would be City Press, could establish at least 4 gazelles have been exported from the country over the past 2 months from Lansera aboard IL-76. In all cases, the flight plans indicated they would fly via Nairobi, with Amman, Jordan, as the final destination. The most recent flight was an IL-76 Transavia Export Airlines that landed at Lansera on 18 September and took off again the next day at 2:48 p.m. It loaded 1 gazelle. An earlier flight took 2 gazelles out of the country, also from Lansera. Photos and videos on Libyan social media show how 4 of the gazelles suddenly appeared in Libya 2 weeks ago and neatly performed a fly past in formation and event in Benghazi. And look at that. Repainted with the Liberation Army's logos all over it. Photos and videos on Libyan social media show how 4 of the gazelles suddenly appeared there 2 weeks ago. South African registration numbers on the sides of the helicopters were covered with Libyan flag stickers. Helicopters are, however, still clearly recognizable due to the unique colors of which some are painted. Suspicion is that Jordan is being used as a front to obtain official flight documents. The cargo was either unloaded elsewhere or the Aleutians switch off their transponders when they are outside South African airspace. Yep. Well, there you go, folks. This is explosive stuff. A couple super chats I need to deal with here. Apologies for that. A little bit behind on the super chat front. Let me get to that. And it's not showing my super chats. What's going on with YouTube? What is going on with this freaking website? One channel does this, one channel does that. Let me just take a look. There's only one way for me to see the super chats, and that's to come over here, but it takes a moment. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. All right, so we got several here. I got Andrew Kerr earlier, then Fabian we covered, then Nick Groves. Andrew Kerr said, we should just assume by default if it's illegal or underhanded, our government is guilty or complicit. 35 Rand. Probably true. Philip says, clowns to the left of me, jokers on the right. Exactly. 140 Rand, making it rain. Clouds are gathering. And this is what I say to the naysayers who don't believe that there's evil afoot in South Africa. Footsec. There's evil afoot in South Africa, ladies and gentlemen. Evil, evil, evil underfoot in South Africa. You must know this is true. Wow. Can't believe we actually had 112,900. Must be because of my latest video. But YouTube's censorship tries and tries and tries, and we've struggled to overcome it. Really slow growth here, but we're trying. Anyway, folks, wow. Did you guys see Malema's face when Mkwazi said he could get deleted messages and that every phone leaves a fingerprint? No, I didn't see that, Helen of Troy, but I guess Julius Malema doesn't watch my program. So let me explain something to you. If you think that crypto can't be broken, you don't understand computing. It may be very difficult and take the resources only a handful of players on the planet and massive supercomputer computing, but it's not foolproof. It's just pretty darn secure. If you think that deleting messages on your phone or on your hard drive or on your tablet is going to remove them from existence, if you sent those messages at any point, they were routed through multiple servers. That message left an imprint on every server along the way. Unless all those servers are cleaned, the message is somewhere. Be careful what you say on social media. Be careful what you say in a text message. Be careful what you say everywhere. It's like my content here. Even if I delete it, like Ronaldo deleted his video about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, it really doesn't matter. It's out there somewhere. It's not just the Internet Archive. People think it's the Internet Archive. Internet Archive couldn't possibly archive all the crap that's been published on the Internet. But everything you say and do digitally, it's there. There's a record of it. If you think you're doing something wrong, you can be found. Just realize how dumb the average person is and realize that half dumber than that. That would be the government. Yep. ANC is diversifying trade due to 30% tariffs. Yeah, they're trying hard to diversify that trade, aren't they? Not. And taxpayers will have to bail Danelle out again. Terrence Mutsago says Australian Qatar are mining oil and gas in Zimbabwe right now, and we're happy for that. Really? How are they pulling that off? And where is that taking place, Terrence? Where is it taking place? And has the racist indigenization law been eased? Has ZANU-PF paused the requirement to give 51% of your equity to people based on skin color, not based on being a Zimbabwean citizen. If you're white, if you're mixed race, if you're San, if you're Indian, you can't have it. Only black Zimbabweans. So has that law been eased? I know that that was a big part of the mining sector. So if I were Australia, I would be circumspect about mining gas or drilling for gas in Zimbabwe, because ZANU-PF is quite capricious. Here today, gone tomorrow. Look how they stole the farms, and they lied about land ownership in Zimbabwe. Got away with it too. You see, folks, 42% of all commercial farmland, as designated by the government of Zimbabwe in the year 2000, what they called commercial farmland, some of it was marginal, was land that had been sold at least once, some of it multiple times, from 1980 until 2000. Now, last time I checked, the government from 1980 to 2000 was initially ZANU. Then after they murdered tens of thousands of Ndebele in Matabeleland, then it became ZANU-PF. But the entire government was majority black, and Mugabe was prime minister, then president of that entire period. Also, the Lancaster House Agreement required that all land sales must go through the government, lands registry and ministry, and that the government had first right of refusal to every land sale. So no one could buy land that was available. If you had land to sell, you had to sell it to the government. Now, they had to pay a willing buyer, willing seller price, and the government wasn't willing to do that because the money they got from the British government, the 63 million pounds that came in, thank you, Martin, for your membership. The 63 million pounds that came into Harare from 1980 till 1992 was spent overwhelmingly to buy farms for Sharon Peary, Constance Chiwengo, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, not for war veterans or poor Zimbabweans. So once again, we could get into that story of the lies of and the subterfuge of the government of Zimbabwe and spend hours on that and how they've contorted this and turned it into a racial issue. It was a racial issue from their side, but it's really about theft. The race was an issue. Mugabe didn't have a problem with white Zimbabweans as long as they kept, supplying his government with money. As long as tax revenue came in and the government could steal money on the side without people noticing. But the damage done by ZANU-PF from the early 1990s to 2000 was so egregious that the economy was collapsing and stumbling. The only thing left that was producing anything of value was the agricultural sector. And therefore they went for it. Yep. Chief Wolf says news might be explosive in the U.S., but not. Well, it's not explosive in the U.S. It's only explosive for me. It will be explosive in South Africa. You watch. By next week, Ron Poe announced another commission of inquiry to find themselves innocent of the helicopters. They were broken. They were just parts, yeah. And we didn't sell it to the Libyans. No, we sold it to Jordanians. You watch. Yep, that's what's going to happen. You're spot on with that one, my friend. ZANU-PF criminals like their ANC communist criminal counterparts. They do. All right, there you go, Colonel. 100% correct historical facts. No, Terrence Mutsago, you are incorrect. The South Africa or Zimbabwe never had sanctions applied to it. You're factually incorrect. That's a lie. Simply go up and look at the U.S. Treasury Department at its bans and restrictions on individuals and parastatals. Zimbabwe was never sanctioned by the United States since 1980, that is. Since 1980, the United States has never sanctioned Zimbabwe. In fact, we were Zimbabwe's closest ally until the late 1980s, early 1990s, providing with them military assistance. They have countless numbers of Zimbabwean Defense Force officers who graduated from Command General Staff College and other U.S. military courses here in the United States. Close military cooperation with them. Yeah, even after the slayings in Matabeleland. I'm not behind the times, Terrence. You're hearing what you want to hear. You're selectively hearing what you want to hear. I never claimed anything like that at all. Therefore, there are no sanctions on Zimbabwe. That's a lie. It's always been a lie. It's been a lie spewed by ANC and by their cohorts. Well, it's by ZANU-PF and by their cohorts in ANC and SADC, lying about the circumstances. Fact. But go to the Treasury Department. I don't have time to do that now in the middle of a news broadcast and show you what individual sanctions still apply. They're still on Zimbabwe. They've never been lifted. Are they telling you in Zimbabwe, Terrence, that the sanctions are gone? Well, of course they're gone. They were never there. But it suits the purposes of ZANU-PF now to tell you that they're in the good graces of the Americans when they're not. I can tell you through close contacts in Zimbabwe's political echelons that they're desperate to restore relations to the United States. And they'll say and do anything. I've interviewed a former government minister from Zimbabwe on this channel a few months back. Well, that's the truth of that matter. Let's get back to the news. I keep pulling up the wrong window. Why do I do that? There we go. All right, the rest of the story. Libya's internationally recognized government is based in Tripoli. The east of the country is under the rebel control of Haftar. Barbara Creasy, the communist transport minister, also formally asked the Department of International Relations and Cooperation letter whether there are any diplomatic requests from other countries to blacklist any aviation operators. Okay, but what about transporting banned equipment to a banned UN-sanctioned entity? Zimbabwe former farms and Zimbabwe government are going to USA to lift. You mean former farmers? So what you're telling me, Terrence, is that Zimbabwe's farmers who were robbed, murdered, raped, slaughtered, and defrauded their legally obtained property are coming to America along with Zimbabwean government officials to get the travel and economic sanctions against corrupt ZANU-PF officials lifted. Who said I was behind? I didn't claim that never happened. What planet are you on, Terrence? See, if you're going to be here, you want to contribute to the conversation, contribute honest facts. Quit saying I'm behind. You're making shit up that I never said. You're making shit up. And your statement is incongruent with your previous statement and what I said. What I said is that these sanctions still, these travel restrictions still apply to the individuals. A few people have been lifted, more people are added. A few people lifted, more added. Entities added, entities removed. They still exist. The fact that a delegation is supposedly going to America to try to get them lifted doesn't change the fact that they still lift. That doesn't make me behind. It makes you a propagandist. Why are you spreading propaganda here? Just make the statement. The statement is correct that the Zimbabweans and farmers and government officials are going there to try to get these things lifted. Say that. Stop saying I'm behind. You're trying to show shade on someone that knows what they're talking about. Dude, you're coming to a gunfight with a butter knife. Stop. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing yourself. Just state the facts. You stated the fact. That's enough. You don't have to have ad hominem attacks against me because it's like Superman. I just bounce off. Just bounce off. By the way, we're not even talking about Zimbabwe, genius. Helicopters. Okay, in 2001, several South African companies were singled out by name for violating UN sanctions after they delivered one of Haftar's first consignments of helicopters. A Puma and several Gazelles, together with a group of 20 pilots and a protection force, transporting the helicopters by truck across the border to Gaborone. According to the UN report, the official documentation also indicated Amman and Jordan was the final destination. So here we go. Not exactly the first time that South African entities have violated UN sanctions. Why is South Africa not being sanctioned for not having better export controls? Why not? Ladies and gentlemen, the death of young Waldo is a story that came to my attention over a week ago after he was shot in the head. And I was asked to cover the story because people were upset. Ostensibly, a lot of South Africans were upset because the young man was white and the media weren't covering his death. At the time, I said that I have insufficient information to follow up on the story. Several people tried to help me out. One sent me a contact number, purportedly the mother of Waldo. However, I responded and said, at this time of grief, after he passed away, I'm unwilling to try to pester a family for a news story. It's simply not a good look. I'm not going to do that. Well, the story gets much more complicated than even I anticipated. Waldo was living in a foster home. And the initial stories I heard from people, which conflicted with a couple of media stories that came out and said that it was a home invasion, a home robbery, it turns out that's a lie, according to witnesses, whom I don't know, who the police are cognizant of. So I don't know what happened here. I don't know if people just shot the kid because he was white. I don't know if people shot the kid because he startled them when they were planning on a home invasion. I don't know if the two guys were sent to kill the child. I don't know. That would all be supposition. What I do know is an 11-year-old has lost his life, shot in the head. Who does that? Who shoots an 11-year-old in the head? It's sick. It's twisted. It's wrong. So the stories come out today in Cockprot 24 and other media stories after he passed away a couple of days ago. Now the story is being covered after a week. Now, before I lay blame on the Fourth Estate in South Africa, which is reticent to report on the suffering of minority South Africans, particularly whites, let's allow for the possibility that the media and the journalists in South Africa were as confused about this story and the conflicting information as I was, and were using good judgment not to report the story. I would hope that's the case. I can tell you that in my case, that was why I didn't run the story. I didn't want to cause pain to the family while he was suffering in hospital or since his death. And I did not want to get it wrong. Credibility is important. Credibility is important. Christian Morning News, thank you. Dante from Vikings and hiding because Julius blamed for years now. Julius is actively hunting him and his family. You'd have no evidence that Julius is hunting him, but the first statement is correct. The second is hyperbole. Also, that's not germane to the conversation. We're not talking about that. I've already reported on that story. I've already interviewed Dante von Vike, and I just did another video on an op-ed on this yesterday or the day before. So let's stick to the topic. Mystery surrounds 11-year-old spring boy's death as conflicting stories emerge. The tragic death of 11-year-old Waldo Furve has left more questions than answers. Indeed, with conflicting accounts, family tensions, and allegations swirling around the murder investigation. Spring's community in Gauteng is mourning the loss. Initial reports were that he was shot during a home invasion at his foster family's Clydesdale Road. Well, in fact, initial reports didn't say anything about him being a foster child. It just said he was shot in the head during a home invasion, and that was it. However, Lieutenant Colonel Mavela Masondo's official police statement said the following. It's reported that the victim was taking a dog for a walk when he was shot at. He was taken to the hospital where he later succumbed to the gunshot wound. Waldo and his younger brother, foster brother, Logan, went for a walk with their foster mother, Christinette Bernard, and the dogs. On returning home, Waldo stayed outside with the smaller dog while Bernard and Logan went inside. A gunshot was heard and they thought it was fireworks. And then they found Waldo shot grievously in the head. So the story goes on to make comments about his birth mother, his natural mother. I don't know that situation. I'm not going to speculate on that. This could go very sideways, this story. There you go. Jason Smith says, thank you for your channel. Really appreciate your views. Common sense must prevail. Indeed. Well, South Africa's trade minister claims that South Africa and the United States are close to a trade deal. I find this implausible, unless it's a trade deal not in the favor of South Africa. South African Trades Minister, or no Trade Minister, Parks Tau, said a deal with the U.S. was very close without providing details. We're on the verge of negotiating an agreement around tariffs and how they can be reciprocally beneficial. He told folks in Drakensberg on Saturday evening. And then, of course, this story written by Bloomberg, which is a propagandist outlet here in America owned by a billionaire scumbag, former mayor of New York. Bloomberg, once a reliable business publication, but nothing but a leftist lying sack of horse manure, said that Trump has falsely claimed that South Africa's government is subjecting white Afrikaans farmers to genocide and offered members of that community refugee status. That is factually incorrect. Donald Trump has never claimed that the government of South Africa has committed genocide against white South Africans. That's a lie. That's a lie. And this is what happens with billionaire publications that get lots of viewership. Bloomberg is lying. That's factually incorrect. Trump has never made any such claim. Trump used the term genocide a couple of times after hearing it in the press. When asked the question directly in the Oval Office in May of 2025, Donald Trump was set up for failure by a South African journalist hoping to get him. When the journalist said, President Trump, now that President Ramaphosa is here, do you still believe that there is a genocide against white South Africans? To which Donald Trump said, I'm not convinced of that. Yet no media outlet on the planet has covered that or quoted that statement since it happened. They continually say that Trump is talking about a genocide. Trump doesn't know about genocide. Trump is talking about everything except a genocide. This is an effort to dismiss what's going on. Tao met with Trade Representative Jameson Greer last month and said there's significant progress in the talks. Trump has criticized South Africa's black economic empowerment laws aimed at redressing the impact. So Bloomberg capitalizes the word black, which is an adjective, except in this term it's part of a noun. But then the rest of the noun, the proper name, is not capitalized. Black economic empowerment laws. Economic empowerment, BEE, is a thing. It's a proper title. Yet Bloomberg fails to correctly capitalize it, thereby perverting the English language. It's not a legitimate publication. It's a propaganda outlet. Black is either a color or it's a proper noun. If it's a proper noun in this context, economic empowerment must be capitalized. There's your grammar lesson for the day. Tao said the two parties were dealing with 5 hot-button issues, including BEE, which he said the government would not abandon, and the so-called genocide of Afrikaners. It's tough decisions, sometimes uncomfortable, when we continue to engage with them and build trust. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no trade deal with the United States, and if there is one, it will not be favorable to South Africans. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Trump has no reason to back down from these requirements. South Africa debates change the name of Kruger Park. Well, that's great. Nobody knows where my blah, 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 blah park is at, but they know where Kruger's at. South Africa's world-famous Kruger National Park could become known by a new name if some local politicians have their way. The vast wildlife sanctuary called the Sabi Game Reserve at the time was rechristened in 1926 to honor Paul Kruger. For Afrikaners, now this one's correct. Descendants of 17th century European settlers. That's by and large a true statement. Kruger has, by the way, notice how BBC gets it correct now. They used to say Dutch, but my reports endlessly pointing out the fact that they're not Dutch. Many of them were Dutch, but they're not Dutch. Now, the propaganda outlet in the UK is suddenly saying 17th century Europeans. But don't forget the Khoi, the San, and the Indonesians. They conveniently forget that. Yes. But the majority of South Africans, he's viewed as a relic of the country's racist past. Not really. Let's do a poll on the street. Somebody go out there. Get Big Daddy Liberty. Go out and ask 10 people on the street. Go out to Alexandria. What do you think of Kruger National Park? I don't know. I've never been there. My goodness. New rules, same results. Cockbrock24 crowing about their great performance. Clicks don't mean competence. Clicks don't mean veracity. Clicks don't mean squat, other than you've got wide reach. News 24 continues to attract the largest audience of any news site in South Africa, followed by its Afrikaans sister publication, Netwerk 24. The top 10 most read South African domains in September. News 24 at 87 million, Netwerk with 73 million. Followed by Supersport, Marola, IOL, Business Tech, Daily Investor, Daily Maverick, My Broadband, and the South African. Page views. Page views. Now, let me tell you something, folks. My channel is not getting the views that it got. But in March, April, May, and June, I was averaging over 4 million views per month, which would put me almost in that top 10. And I'm just some dude sitting in Pennsylvania, not a media company, with almost as many views as the top 10, those among the top 10. Now, when you take me and you put Ronaldo and Morning Shot together and others who cover the news in South Africa, we were larger than 5 of those top 10 back in March, April, May, and June. 300 Rand to jump the queue. Well, this sort of thing happens all the time, folks. IOL breathlessly reports on this at the Durban Home Affairs. Frustration and anger boiling over the Umgeni Road branch of the Department of Home Affairs in Durban as citizens accuse officials and middlemen of turning public service for cash into cash for access. Residents claim bribery has become entrenched at the branch, with people forced to pay up to 300 Rand to move ahead in queues and receive any assistance at all. When you arrive, you're approached by people asking if you want swift service or if you just want to stand in the queue. If you want to be served quickly, they tell you it's 300 Rand. I refuse to pay, and I've gone home empty-handed every time. People who come at 2 p.m. get served and leave because they bribe their way in. Well, that's hardly surprising without any oversight, any control, and no consequences for the criminal bureaucrats who run South Africa's government. A tragic situation of a child shooting a farm worker dead in Thabamzimbi. A farm laborer was accidentally shot dead, allegedly by an 11-year-old boy shooting guinea fowl at a farm in Thabamzimbi in Limpopo. Police were called to the scene. On arrival, they discovered the body of an African male. He's a black male, not an African male. Estimated to be in his 30s, lying on his side with a bullet wound in the upper left chest. The victim was declared dead by medics. Preliminary investigation revealed an 11-year-old boy was allegedly shooting at guinea fowl on the farm when he accidentally discharged a firearm, fatally wounding a farm worker. The boy's 43-year-old father was arrested and charged with negligent handling of a firearm. The firearm and cartridge were confiscated as part of the ongoing investigation. Both the child and the father expected to appear in the magistrate's court on Monday. Lieutenant General Tembi Hadebe expressed concern and said this heartbreaking incident serves as a reminder that firearms must be handled with the utmost care and stored securely at all times. So the implication here is the child had the firearm illicitly. I don't know that that would be true. As an 11-year-old, I hunted. I was not unsupervised. That might be the issue here. But I hunted as an 11-year-old. Well, South Africa is vulnerable to authoritarian rule. So says the special envoy to the United States. But wait, there is no special envoy. Wait, there is one. No, there isn't. There is Inkabisi Jonas, the man who's never come to America, the special envoy to America. Disillusionment with democracy can lead to a slide in authoritarianism and anti-constitutionalism, said former Deputy Finance Minister. South Africa must change course to preserve its democracy. Government must listen to people, restore law and order, and reform the state. Well, Nkabisi Jonas, you're spot on, but it's your ANC that has destroyed governance. Jonas said the troubles engulfing the ANC have significantly intensified. The ANC is not providing credible leadership on critical issues of social and economic policy, nor has it demonstrated any visible path for execution. The ANC appears more incoherent and divided than ever, and its prospects, both electorally and more generally as an organizing force within government and society, appear even dimmer. Well, of course they're dimmer, because the ANC is useless. They've done nothing but destroy the country. He suggested 4 things should happen. Let's see if we agree with him. The government must listen to citizens, address their fears around migration, not by reducing the constitutional rights of migrants, by operating a fair system of border control. That seems reasonable. Law and order must be restored to prevent destruction of public infrastructure by criminal syndicates and clean up the police intelligence service, which must be clearly separated from party politics. That's reasonable, and I've said that as well. The state must reform to create an effective professional public service that operates at arm's length from politicians. He said this was imperative because representative party politics has become increasingly criminalized and criminal networks operate brazenly across the public sector. Yeah, but I've been saying that for 20 years. Where were you, Nkabisi Jonas? And the pace of economic growth and transformation has to be accelerated. Of course, that's a nice idea, but how? By removing BE. He can't bring himself to say that. Can't bring himself to say that. Well, folks, it's pretty shocking what's going on here in South Africa as it brazenly falls apart. Nkabisi Jonas with some good ideas, but 25 years late. Madagascar turning our attention to SADC countries. The president warns of an attempted coup after soldiers have joined the protest. And we have an update on this story since it first came out. Madagascar's presidency said today that an attempted illegal enforceable seizure of power was underway in the African nation without providing details a day after some soldiers joined a protest movement that had begun last month. Troops from the elite CAPSAT unit that helped President Rajoelina seize power in 2009 coup urged fellow soldiers to disobey orders and back the youth-led protest, which began September 25th and posed the most serious challenge to Rajoelina's rule since his re-election in 2023. This guy seized power in 2009 in a military coup, and now the military is unhappy with him. Folks, when will the ANC send SANDF troops to Madagascar to intervene in their domestic affairs? Wait for it. Wait for it. To distract from what's going on with his illusions, watch for Angie Mocheka to announce the deployment of a South African task force under the guise of SADC to Madagascar to intervene. You watch. Don't be surprised if it happens. Meanwhile, the update: Madagascar Army unit claims control as president alleges power grab. Elite troops join the youth-led protest over utilities that have swelled into the gravest threat for the government. A renegade military unit, Madagascar, has announced it will take control of the armed forces, intensifying a crisis after the elite soldiers who once helped bring the current president to power switched sides to join anti-government protesters. From now on, all orders from Madagascar Army, whether land, air, or naval, will originate from CAPSAT headquarters, officers from the Administrative and Tactical Contingent said in a video message today. The declaration came hours after the presidency accused unnamed forces of attempting to overthrow the president. The presidency said an attempted illegal enforceable seizure of power was underway. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I remind you at this point that, remember 18 months ago, I was offered a job paying over $200,000 a year to be the defense advisor in Madagascar. And the contract was with an offer of an extension for a year. Right then, based on my qualifications, they were going to give me the 2-year contract if I wanted, but at any point during that year, I could have extended. Had I taken that offer, I would be in the middle of this right now, which would be very exciting, but it might be quite dangerous. I would be in the middle of that mess right now and probably be arrested by these guys because they're not the defense ministry. Wow. Wow. This is not a refugee program, folks. If you have refugee questions, please save them for the refugee broadcast. Wow. Yep. Cameroon is holding its presidential elections, and it's a fait accompli, of course. This guy is never going away. Paul Biya, the 92-year-old nonagenarian, is widely expected to maintain his 43-year grip on power despite an energized opposition pushing for change. Not a re-election. One of his opponents is a former government spokesman who's 76. Biya has been in power since 1982, and he's not going anywhere. Cameroon is his personal fiefdom. Arab states apparently expanded their cooperation with the Israeli military during the Gaza war. Wow. Arab and Israeli military officials have come together for meetings and trainings facilitated by U.S. Central Command on regional threats, Iran, and underground tunnels. Even as key Arab states condemned the Gaza Strip war, they quietly expanded security cooperation with the U.S. Israeli military, leaked U.S. documents reveal. Those military ties were thrown into crisis after Israel's September airstrike in Qatar, but can now play a key role in overseeing the nascent ceasefire. Over the past 3 years, facilitated by the United States, senior military officials from Israel and 6 Arab countries have come together and planned meetings in Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, somebody in the Trump administration, a bureaucrat no doubt, or a rogue military person, is disclosing classified information. I urge the Federal Bureau of Incompetence to go out and investigate this case and prosecute those who disclose classified information, jeopardizing peace deals throughout the Middle East. There you go. Well, the Gaza ceasefire is holding for now. The hostage release is coming. J.D. Vance said 20 living hostages are expected to be released in the next 24 hours. The Israel-Hamas ceasefire brokered by President Trump held for a third day today, offering hope for more lasting peace. By noon, the Hamas terrorist group is expected to release the remaining hostages from that attack. Well, it's 1,300. It hasn't happened. Israel is prepared and ready to immediately receive all our hostages. Well, we'll see. Let me try to get an update and see what's going on with the hostages now, because it's afternoon. It's happened. Nope, 57 minutes ago. Still haven't been released. Well, if they were supposed to be released at noon, then we already have a violation of that agreement because they haven't been released. Or at least it hasn't been reported. Afghanistan and Pakistan are at it. Dozens of soldiers killed in a border clash. Afghanistan's Taliban government and Pakistani traded fire overnight. Oh, look at that. An American-made Humvee under the control of the Taliban. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe Biden. Afghanistan's Taliban troops exchanged deadly fire with Pakistani forces. Two countries share a border as tensions between the two nations have been escalating. They claim to have killed scores of each other's soldiers, citing different death tolls. Well, it's good to see they can get along without the Americans involved. Not. Afghanistan officials claim their forces killed 58 Pakistani soldiers in overnight border operations. Pakistan says security forces captured 19 Afghan border posts, claiming that they killed more than 200 Taliban. Wow, that's pretty impressive if it's true. China's demographic crisis means it's going to run out of workers. Who told you that first? Well, probably someone else, but certainly I've told you that since I started broadcasting. China's population is in free fall. In addition to that, China's landscape is heavily polluted, and China is a disaster as rising expectations over the past 25 years have not been met for many. True, over 500 to 600 million people have been lifted out of abject poverty, but the rest haven't. And China is a disaster. The biggest challenge China faces now isn't Trump, but it's the depopulation of its country. China's experiencing population decline on a scale and a speed the world has never seen. This will create ripples that will be felt across China and the world for decades to come. The impact on China's long-term growth rate could imperil Beijing's mission to become the global power. Exactly. They will slide backwards. In 1990, there were 1.15 billion people in China. The median age was 23.7, rather young. The average Chinese woman had 2.5 children, better than replacement rate. Okay, so that was 1990. And very few people were over the age of 60. Most were in the working population. However, by 2023, the demographic had changed entirely. The median age had risen from 23 to 39 years. That is a shocking rise. Women were having an average of one child. That's half the replacement rate. And in 2022, according to Chinese census data, China's population had peaked at 1.4 billion. Now it's declining since 2022. And look at the over 60 population growing. Well, there you have it, folks. By 2050, China is on an alarming trajectory. The United Nations projects that in 2050, China's population will fall to 1.26 billion, not much smaller, but the makeup of that population is the issue. The age distribution will worsen, with 10% will be under 15 and 40% will be over 60. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. China is headed for a very bad situation. By 2100, China's population will be only 633 million people. A mere 49 million people, or 7.8%, will be under the age of 15. 52% of the population will be over the age of 60. China is a disaster waiting to happen. The one-child policy, the termination of children, the murder of infants by the Chinese is what led to this. So, in 1965, Chinese women were having an average of over 7 children per woman. They had a later lower fewer campaign, which began to lower it to 6, but not enough. The one-child policy, well, they actually did change it down to about 2 plus. And then the one-child policy came into effect. And after 1990, when economic development happened, look at this, it begins to collapse. Now they have a 2-child policy. And it's not increasing. They're going to have a 3-child policy at some point. It's not increasing anything. China is a disaster area in more ways than one. North Korea is flaunting its nuclear arsenal at a military parade. They get upset about Trump, but the media is not upset about North Korea doing this. Kim Jong-un showed off new weapon systems at a parade in Pyongyang with Chinese and Russian guests of honor and their latest display of solidarity. The parade, marking one of North Korea's biggest holidays, was held Friday night at Kim Il-sung Square in Pyongyang. According to state media, it featured tens of thousands of soldiers goose-stepping in the rain, a colorful fireworks show, and some of the nation's newest weapons, including multiple launch rocket systems, drones, surface-to-air missile systems, hypersonic glide missiles, and the star of the show, the next-generation Hwasong-20, a solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the continental United States. Several senior foreign dignitaries attended, including Chinese Premier Li Qiang, Russia's Dmitry Medvedev, and Vietnam's Communist Party chief To Lam. Look at that. Wow, North Korea, a real threat. And where are the Democrats? Silent. Well, Greece's Parthenon is temporarily free of scaffolding for the first time in centuries. Stop it. The ancient Parthenon in Athens, Greece, is temporarily free of scaffolding for the first time in 200 years. Iron scaffolding surrounding the western side of the temple for the past 2 decades as part of restoration work is removed. With this removal, the former temple's walls are finally exposed, as noted by Greek Cultural Minister Lina Mendoni. Acropolis Restoration Service architect and engineer Rosilia Christodouloupou told the newspaper that dismantling scaffolding started in July and ended September 26th. The final removal date coincided with the anniversary of the 1687 explosion at the Parthenon caused by a Venetian shell hitting an Ottoman gunpowder magazine stored inside. The blast destroyed much of the central structure of the Parthenon, which had stood nearly intact since its construction in the 5th century BC. It will be scaffolding free for about a month, after which new lighter structures will be erected to continue the restoration work. Wow. Can you imagine if that shell hadn't hit? It would be standing almost in the condition it was since the 5th century. Germany, where beer is sacred, now leads the world in non-alcoholic brews. What? Long known for traditional brewing, has seen a boom in non-alcoholic beers, which are being embraced by young people and athletes as a healthy alternative. It looked like all the other beers in the sea of giant 1-liter glasses that the Augustiner Brewery tent in Oktoberfest, but Peter Assen's mug harbored a secret. His drink was non-alcoholic. The 36-year-old isn't a teetotaler. He'd already drained 2 liters of old-fashioned beer, but as a Munich local drank with friends a bouquet of faux flowers tucked festively in his shirt collar, he alternated with an alcohol-free version. Water in the tent costs as much as non-alcoholic beer, and I like beer better. His drink was a small sign of a big trend in Germany. A country long associated with beer, specifically the hyper-traditional brewing, has become a world leader in the consumption of alcohol-free beer by volume. More than half of Germans who are 16 years of age, the legal drinking age, have bought non-alcoholic beer or cider. And there he is, drinking his non-alcoholic beer. I'm sorry, I'll pass. France's Emmanuel Macron asked his newly resigned prime minister to reform a government. Good luck with that. French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday reappointed Sébastien Lecornu as prime minister just days after his resignation, making him try to form a new government. Is not going to work. Is not going to work, folks. That is not going to last. That is not going to last. I'm here to tell you. Not going to last. Yeah, that's unfortunate for France, but that's the reality. We got a few more news stories to get to here, folks. Donald Trump has ordered the Defense Department to issue military paychecks during the shutdown. Trump said the Pentagon would repurpose money to make payroll as military service members were poised to miss paychecks on Wednesday. That's mid-month. Some military members, it's an option. When you serve the military, you have the option to request a mid-month paycheck. I tried that, and I found out that it just meant I never had any money. So I switched back when I was a young troop to once a month. Most troops get paid once a month, but some do get mid-month pay. President Trump on Saturday said the government would issue paychecks to military members during the shutdown. Trump said he would use his authority as Commander-in-Chief to direct our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to use all available funds to get our troops paid on October 15th. Trump's post did not make clear whether military members would continue to receive paychecks beyond Wednesday. The money to pay service members during shutdown will come from repurposed Pentagon research and development funds that Congress authorized for 2 years. A Pentagon official said in a statement that $8 billion in unobligated funds from the prior fiscal year would be used to issue paychecks if the shutdown continues past October 15th. But that doesn't answer my question. Will I get paid as a retiree? Coast Guard going without pay during a 34-day shutdown the last time this happened led to some contentious issues. This time, this pay doesn't apply to the Coast Guard. Probably not to retirees either. Interesting. So I need to get ready for salty cracks on November 1st. Silicon Valley billionaire Mark Benioff wants the National Guard deployed to San Francisco. Billionaire tech executive Mark Benioff said he wants President Trump to restore a sense of public safety in San Francisco by sending the National Guard. The CEO of Salesforce, owner of Time magazine, suggested the Guard could help understaff San Francisco police, which he said lacks a presence on city streets. Mr. Benioff said he's paying for 200 off-duty cops to patrol downtown San Francisco this week for the Dreamforce 2025 convention. The event expects to draw 50,000 attendees. Mayor Lori launched his Rebuilding the Ranks plan in May to bring her police staffing up to the recommended expert level of 2,000. For the first time in nearly a decade, San Francisco is seeing net gains in police officers as sheriff's deputies. Crazy. There's a super chat from Berto saying Madagascar is great. It took 8 hours to drive 150 kilometers at the end of the rainy season by a local driver. Had to drive myself, it would have taken me 6 months. Roads are a mess. Thank you. Clouds are gathering. There you have it, folks. The CDC is losing 1,000 staff members during the lockdown. Some of the layoff notices, including those leading to the measles response and other responding to an Ebola outbreak, will be reversed. More than 1,000 staff at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention received layoff notices. Among those initially receiving layoff notices were leaders of the response to the growing number of measles cases in the United States and abroad, including one official who has served more than 28 years. And here's a little nifty idea on how you stop measles. Stop letting illegal aliens cross the border infected with measles who don't get childhood immunizations. What a concept. What a concept. At least 16 people were killed in that explosion in Tennessee, that explosives factory. Officials say families of all 16 victims have been notified and the investigators are still working to determine the cause of the blast. Huge blast at an explosives facility in Tennessee has killed at least 16 people, lowering the toll after locating 2 people who were previously missing and presumed dead. My goodness. The blast was felt for kilometers, destroyed an entire building at the plant's large campus. Officials had previously said that 18 people were unaccounted for, but reporters were told that 2 people's vehicles and personal items were found at the scene were not actually there when the blast erupted.
The explosion at the Accurate Energetic Systems plant in rural Tennessee was heard for miles and shook.
It did. It was shocking what happened in this explosion, folks.
And charred remains of the facility are slim.
And a lot of times when...
Yeah, sad story there for those families in Tennessee. Well-known and respected company. Well, the Epoch Times, which is in opposition to the Chinese communists, finds itself under attack. Yep. Chinese cyber attackers impersonating Epoch Times are threatening federal agencies in the White House. The fake threats are the latest effort in an escalating campaign carried out by the Chinese regime to destroy the Epoch Times, which reports breathlessly about Chinese corruption. Chinese cyber attackers have claimed that they impersonated the Epoch Times to send threatening emails to multiple federal agencies in the White House. 3 screenshots of threats were attached to an email. One showed the Contact Us form on the White House website with the Epoch Times phone number and email filled in. In a comment littered with exclamation marks, the sender claimed to represent practitioners of Falun Gong, a spiritual community persecuted in China and supported by the Epoch Times. We will throw incendiary bombs and explosives if anyone tries to stop us. We will open fire. The message claimed that the acts were in retaliation for your failure to address the Communist Party's transnational repression. Similar fake threats were allegedly sent to the CIA, Department of Justice, and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. What is happening here is an effort to disparage the Epoch Times by Chinese communists. In addition to that, white powder substance was sent to the Epoch Times in an intimidation campaign. The Epoch Times on October 7th received an envelope containing white powder that appears meant to intimidate the publication. The yellow-colored envelope contained an Epoch Times newspaper in a small, clear Ziploc bag containing white powder. Obviously, we know the story about what happened with anthrax having been sent to government officials in the United States over 2 decades ago. Diane Keaton, the one-time pal of Woody Allen, has passed away at the age of 79. La-di-da, Dame, dead at 79. Known for a unique brand of comedic timing and in imitable style, she's died. Stars from Goldie Hawn to Bette Midler to Steve Martin expressed their love of the actor after hearing the news, paying tribute to just a truly original person, Reese Witherspoon said. Keaton was 79. The cause of her death was not immediately available. Spokesperson for the Los Angeles Fire Department said they received a call from medical assistants on Saturday morning at Keaton's address, and paramedics transferred a person to the hospital. Law enforcement source confirmed the person transported was Keaton. She was celebrated, prolific actor whose career spanned decades, early on earning an Academy Award in the Best Actress category for 1977's Annie Hall, along with Woody Allen in that movie. The film showcased her abilities in the realm of comedy, but also displayed her nimble handling of authentic and vulnerable moments. And there she is, receiving her Academy Award. She bore no relation to Buster or Michael Keaton. She was born Diane Hall in 1946 in Los Angeles. In 2004 Fresh Air podcast, she talked about how her mother, a homemaker and amateur photographer, won pageants and became Miss Highland Park and later Miss Los Angeles, and gave her her first urge to perform. So there she is with Woody Allen and Annie Hall on the right, and with Al Pacino in The Godfather. We don't even remember that she's in The Godfather. Here she is with Goldie Hawn and Bette Midler in The First Wives Club. And she kept going. Here she is on The Family Stone. That's a photo from 2022 when she was 77. When she was 69, she told the American Association of Retired Persons magazine, AARP, at this age, everything seems much more astonishing, like, oh my goodness, look at that sycamore tree. Why didn't I see that before? There's a magical aspect, I wonder, to being on this planet. Yep, there is a magical aspect to being on this planet. Diane Keaton, gone, age 79. Thank you, folks, for being here. I appreciate all of you being here for the news today. I hope that you found it interesting and informative. Again, this explosive story from South Africa. The South African government is in violation of United Nations sanctions, as per a claim by City Press. If true, it should lead to sanctions. It's not the first time that's happened in South Africa, and they can blame it on a private corporation, but this shows lax controls by the government, who are either incompetent or complicit in what's happening. There you go. That was a lot of news, wasn't it, Shawnee? Especially for a Sunday. It's supposed to be a chill day. Benj got chickenpox at 18. I got chickenpox when I was a little kid. I'll never forget it. I was sitting in our apartment in our all-black neighborhood, except for 3 white families out of 300, or 400, whatever it was, on the coffee table. And my father was applying calamine lotion to my chickenpox sores. And there was an Armour hot dog commercial that came on television. Armour hot dogs, the kind of dogs kids love to eat. Fat kids, skinny kids, even kids with chickenpox. Armour hot dogs. Yeah, I was a skinny kid with chickenpox. Never going to forget that moment. That sticks with me forever. Yep. It's going to be a massive task to try and find that explosion. Yeah, you're right. I don't know how. There's nothing left. It's obliterated. Thank you all for the super chats. ADHD homework. Correction, it is the War Department. You got anything better to say? Beer news sounds fake for sure. Germans like beer. No one said they didn't like beer, ADHD. Just said that the non-alcoholic sales are soaring. That's what they get for their one-child policy. Exactly. Exactly right. Another example, communists. They dictate everything, even the number of children you may have. Yep, and look at the impact. Yep. No words reference exchange of Israelis and hostages prison in Israel. Worrying, how can they let this terrible... I don't understand what you're saying, Delmer. You have no words for it? I've talked about the story. Garrett Gillich is here. What's going on, buddy? China at that stage not enforced the law. Yes, that's correct, Rex. That's why I talked about it. If Pakistan wants more young men for their army, we got lots of them in the UK. It's true, Star Chaser. You got about 800,000 or 900,000 of them they can send back. Fighting over curry. No, Pakistanis and Afghans aren't curry eaters for the most part. That's not where it comes from. Madagascar is an odd country. 3 Qatari officials killed in Egypt. Yes, I didn't cover that story because it was still breaking. I thought I'd wait for more information. Yes, you're correct, Leon and Leonard Pistorius. The only reason that News 24 has that many clicks is because of clickbait. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yep. Cameron uses Dominion. I don't think they use any voting machines. No good idea presented to the ANC. Well, I sent you an email October 10th. Okay, Lola. That's 4 days ago. And I've been at a high the past few days. Let's see what you're talking about here. See if I can find it. Hello. There we go. Gmail. Lola. Okay. Let's see if there's anyone listed as Lola. Okay, I've got a Lola. No, I don't have a Lola. Oh, no, there we go. Okay. 10 October. Okay. Okay, hang on a second. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, that's a tough situation there. I have over 30 or 40 requests like that. I can't do that on my own. What I might want to do, Lola, is the problem is that I don't know who's trustworthy that I can do this with and set something up. So, yeah, I really can't do it effectively if I'm here. Who's going to be put with what ringer? Goat G, what's wrong place, wrong time? What you guys talking about? Zim is a perfect example of what should not happen in South Africa, but unfortunately our brainless leaders are steering us in that direction. You're right about that, Fabian. Amazon, Texas. Letitia De Bruyne, thank you for always updating us. Everything's happening. Scary being in the USA, and the rest of my family is still back in South Africa. Well, Letitia, I had no idea you're in the USA. I don't know if you live here, you migrated here, if you're a refugee. It's the first time I think I've seen you in the chat. If you want to reach out to me and speak privately, that's fine. Send me an email. I don't know whether to congratulate you being in America or what. And also, I don't know where your family is, but I have empathy. Shirley Dewhurst, what's the details about Fly Sapphire ownership problems? Oh, that's old news, Shirley. You're just catching on this. The problem is that it's majority owned by an Irish holding company. And South Africa's aviation rules require that companies operating inside South Africa domestically must have majority South African ownership. And that is an anti-competitive, anti-World Trade Organization ruling. And it's another example of South Africa doing what it wants to do and, pretending that it's a good player on the global stage when it's not. So the court ordered that they had to divest the holdings. Well, if that happened, the Irish holding company, which runs that company very effectively and very efficiently, if they sell it to someone, and also it's about BE, they want 30% hand over to people because their skin's black. This is a problem. They should stick their nose elsewhere and leave Fly Sapphire alone. It's the most effective, most efficient, most reliable carrier in South Africa, and they should leave it alone. But you're way behind that story. Hey, Fleshin! You had to Google the story. What story is that? Is that about the arms, Fleshin? Well, yeah, they're going to cover it up. Leftists help each other. Jason Smith says, thanks for your channel. We appreciate your views, common sense. You're welcome. Foster child. Yeah, it is sad, Rex. I lived in foster care at one time. It was really sad. Nati growing up Tula. How about Boers get some respect? Not sure about that, what that story is, Garrett. Anyway, so, folks, well, let me just cover something here very quickly. It just reminds me of something I was talking about these other issues. So there are a number of South African refugees who are approved, had a flight, or all but ready to take a flight and had their flight canceled. And those who aren't having their flights booked right now. Found 27 cents stuffed on this side of the couch. Thank you for the 14 Rand. Super chat, Nick. Thank you. Clouds are gathering. There are a number of those people. I reached out. A handful of people offered to provide accommodation in Pretoria and Joburg and even somebody in Cape Town. And I've already hooked up at least one or two families with accommodation in the Pretoria area. If your flight, now not a situation if you need to go to Pretoria at some point, you want a place to stay. I'm not offering that. And I'm also not in accommodation. I don't want to put people out. What I'm saying is that the people who found themselves in a bind through no making their own, let me paint a picture here for you. Let me get the pen out. We're going to paint this picture here. So, okay. It's red, a little yellow in the picture. Okay, here you go. A little yellow. Okay. So I've painted a picture for you now. Here's the picture. South Africans sent a statement of interest or PRM email. They went through the process, medical records checks, criminal background checks, interviews, everything. They were approved. They were given flight instructions starting on 30 September, and now 13 days later, 2 weeks, they've not flown. Many of these people relocated to the destination or the place they're supposed to go, particularly Joburg or that area, and were staying there, having sold all their belongings, their motor vehicles, liquidated their accounts, and just living off a little bit of cash they have, and now they find themselves in a bind. We're talking about families with 2 people, families, an individual person, families with 6 kids, all over the spectrum here. So this is a very awkward situation, and it is not good for my country's reputation because of the Democrats in Congress, what they're doing. What I did is I requested anybody can offer accommodation. We've helped some of those people out. Now, beyond that, this is continuing. You can be a house guest in somebody's house if they're willing and they're able to put up with you for 2 or 3 weeks while you wait for a flight, but you're eating their food, you're drinking their drink, you have expenses. Or they have expenses. We have a situation where some of these people are going to run out of money. Now, I can't attest, and it's going to be awkward for me to try to raise money for people, but we have to start looking, folks, at some sort of solution to help these people, somebody who can help these people. It has to be somebody on the ground in Pretoria, preferably, because that's closest to Hatfield, somebody who's there who'd be willing to take this on. But it'd be a thankless job. It would be an absolutely thankless job. If I was in South Africa, I'd be willing to take the task on, but I can't from here. It's impossible. I can't meet the people. I can't hand money over to them. I can't prove the veracity of them. So, yeah. But if I were in South Africa, what I would do is I would make this offer to these folks. But in the meantime, before that, I would reach out to U.S. authorities and I would say, listen, people are going to come to me asking for money. If I send you the name, can you verify? Now, they won't do that for a South African because they can't trust you all not to share that and endanger people's lives. But I might be able to pull it off. But the point here is that something needs to be done to raise some money. Maybe we have an event to raise money for these folks, or maybe we just have people donate. I don't know. But people are going to run out of money pretty quickly here. And it's not good. It's not pretty. And this is the reason. Look, I don't mind helping people when they find themselves in circumstances beyond their control. And that's what's going on here. This is beyond their control. They complied. They followed the rules. They did what they were told to do. They went to all the meetings. They got approved. They're set. They disposed of their things. They went for their flight, and then it was canceled. That's beyond their control. Yeah, I'm asymptotic, that's true, but you sold everything, but many of those people still live at home. They just don't have any beds. They don't have anything, so it's difficult. But I'm talking about the people that had to relocate and waiting for a flight. So there's a few people like that. Vander says, the joke that people need to say, you just delete your message. Why did you delete your message? Well, I was trying to read your message. It's kind of you, Colonel, also of Chris Ehlers. Did Chris Ehlers jump in here and offer something? Samantha, whether they have capes from Cape Town or not, you'll figure it out if you want out. Yeah, Chris has a place. All right, so I'll keep that in mind, Chris. Went to Cash Crusaders yesterday and bought my tent to come camp out. Sleeping bag. That's kind of your age. ADHD. Withdrawal from Afghanistan followed the whole tragic affair. Sad. Biden. Yeah, it was horrible. 14th is the next time the Senate voted on a budget to end the shutdown, but the House doesn't meet that day. Yeah, if you're sending me email to another email address, it's not that one right there, the Hendo push, then you're not going to get responses. The person who sent me the email earlier mentioned it. They did send it to that email address. And even if you do send the email address, I can't promise a timely response. Folks, today I've got a zillion things going on. We're going to have a refugee broadcast in half an hour. On top of that, I've also got to go and do a veterans meeting tonight and on the status of employees at the place. We have some serious problems there. At 7:30 on a Sunday evening. That's what I'll be doing, interrupting my other work. I have letters to write. I have medical appointments coming up this week. I have an interview with Rob Hersoff on Tuesday. I haven't even posted that yet. There is lots going on constantly. And also, got to clean my place, straighten up, got to take care of stuff. Stuff takes time. So I'll do my best to get to your emails, but I get there as quick as I can. Ronell says, I'm glad you took a day off. You were dearly missed. Thanks. Well, thank you, Ronell. I appreciate that. Well, I bet with all the rugby, when URC season's in and test rugby's going on, I usually don't do the news unless there's a gap. And yesterday, technically, I probably could have done the news in the morning, but I was still knackered from the previous night. Terrence says, this month, USA to lift sanctions. Okay, where is that headline at, Terrence? Tell us the source of that. Where did you get that headline? I'll post another time when it's appropriate. Okay, thank you, Werner. That's fine. No, they can't, Lewis. See, you guys aren't listening to what I said, or you missed it. I've said it repeatedly. It's not a question of paying for the flights, because at this stage, we are not paying for the flights anymore. The United States government is not paying for the flights. Werner sent me an email a while back. Okay, Werner. All right, thank you for this. You sent me lots of super chats. I don't recall an email. Oh, you mean about comment? Oh, yeah. And Werner, I know about that. Yeah. No. I didn't have someone to send you. That's why. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Werner, for the 70 Rand super chat. So, where was I at? Lost track of that. The Zimbabwe. Yeah, Tuesday, Tian Kitzel. Oh no, it was because not listening to what I said. Okay, so Louis Harhoff. Okay, so here's the situation, folks. We, the U.S. taxpayer, are no longer paying for the flights to bring South Africans over. It's going through the normal process based on multiple information. In fact, people sending me sheets that they had to sign. You are making a loan through the National Organization of Migration, unless you can compensate the government. I don't know how that works, but whatever the case is, that isn't the issue. The issue isn't whether you can pay for the flight. That isn't the issue. The issue is that there has to be somebody to receive you. There has to be a U.S. Embassy person to escort you to the agent to get you into security to get on the flight. And then they have to stay there until you're in the air and gone. And if the flight comes back, they have to come back. So we have to have people on salary. Everyone's been furloughed. There's almost nobody working except essential personnel. That's not an essential person. Then when you arrive in America, there has to be a U.S. government official receiving you on this end, and then the NGO taking you over. But the NGOs don't have money right now. The NGOs haven't been paid because that money was through 30 September. So we have a real problem here. And I'll talk about this in the refugee broadcast here in a half an hour. We have a serious problem here that we cannot do this because we don't have the personnel to do it. Lawfully, you can't just tell you go get on a plane on your own accord and then come over here and land. I mean, what if something happens to you? You've become responsible for the United States government until you're here safely to your destination. So that's what's going on. So, Lewis, I hope that explains it. Yep. All right. Food sock. Yeah, food sock might be an option. There you go. Thank you for the news, Chris. Yeah, food sock. Let me ask them. Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay, maybe that'll do it. That's some way I can help. If you are a family that was supposed to fly and had a flight, now don't try to scam me here. Be honest. If you were on the 30th of September, the 1st October, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever, and you were told to come to Joburg or Cape Town or Pretoria, and you went there, and you now find yourself in a difficult situation, if you can't find accommodation, let me know through an email, number one. If you are in a desperate situation where you don't have enough money to pay for food at some point, let me know. I will reach out to Food Sock and ask them if they're willing to help. If they're not willing to help, I will make this commitment now. I'm willing to buy food through Food Sock to be delivered to those families in those circumstances in that area. Not to all of South Africa, but in that area. All right? I'm willing to make that. I don't know how we coordinate it, but I will try. All right? You heard it here, okay? And remind me to talk about that, Hendo, in the next broadcast if you're here, or one of my mods, okay? We'll do that, okay? I interviewed the guy from Food Sock. It's nutritious food. If you don't like soy, too bad. You want to eat or you want to starve, all right? Those in desperate situations, send an email, and I'll see what we can do, okay? All right? Where there's a will, there's a way. All right. For the people who are moaning about me saying that, well, Colonel Wyatt, because I've seen the screen captures. People have sent me screen captures from WhatsApp groups and from Facebook groups where people have not intentionally disparaged me, but essentially disparaged me. Well, Colonel Wyatt does his news broadcasts, his lives, and, if he really wants to help people, why doesn't he start an organization to help people? You don't know what I do. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. I don't advertise it. The people whom I've given money out of my pocket, the people whom I've helped, the people I've coordinated for this, that, and the other, for accommodation, for solving the refugee problem, and the ingratitude. One family in particular, who would still be in South Africa were it not for my actions and burning my bridges, came to America. And then instead of having the courtesy to even tell me they got here, leaving me in limbo, I had to keep asking government sources, did you get them out? They never even told me. Then I found out they were here. Do you know how I found out they were here? Because the person went on Facebook and started posting their experience. I'm in America. I'm in this state. I'm doing this. This is what it's like. It's wonderful here. How about a little fucking gratitude? For me, burning my bridges, trying to help you. No. Not even courtesy to tell me they were here, let alone offer to come on my channel. And this is clearly a person that doesn't mind telling people who they are because they're all over Facebook. You see, it's a thankless task. You think it's a thankless task, but you do it anyway. All right, guys, we'll see you in 30 minutes. But I don't think I would set this up so you get diverted to that. Let me take a look and see if I did that. I don't think I did that because I did all this stuff really quickly this morning on the fly. So redirect so you don't have to go looking for it. There you go. It'll be taken care of now. Okay, so when this is over, you'll be redirected to the RefD stream, which will be in about 25 minutes. Thank you already, guys. Already have the stream up. Okay, Werner, that's cool. All right, not your fault. And can imagine what you have done to endure. Oh, thank you, Del Marie. Yeah, I've done a lot. But anyway, it's no big deal. I received food socks this week. It took a bit long to arrive. Packets are bigger than I suspected. Must still try it. Okay, Husky, cool. Yep. All right, thanks. Well, Hasigi, yeah, you can't afford to feed people. That's why if they get food sock, it'll help. Marley Quinn says asshole. Who's an asshole? G Sawyer says we're very welcome. Okay, or we appreciate it. Okay, all right. See you guys shortly. See you now. Okay, thank you, Blue. See you now. That's right. We'll see you guys now. Coming up shortly. All right. Cheers. See you shortly. Bye bye.